Welcome to the MJK Private Secondary School Database Project. This project attempts to create a database for MJK Secondary School to manage its students and teachers, specifically with respect to their classroom management and registration processes. The project also looks at assigning merits and awards to students based on achievement. The first item we will look at is a package that was created for the school in order to be able to manage student payments. This function was created to enable each student to be monitored to determine whether or not they are in arrears or whether they have been paid up as far as school fees are concerned. This has bearing on whether or not the student is able to register for a new term. So here is a query that calls the function, and the function exists here. We will now run this query that implements, or rather uses, this function in the package to see how it runs. And here we see this column shows for a student whether a given term has been paid for. The next item we will look at in our code is the procedure that will generate or regenerate payment balances for each student. We will notice here in the package specification that only the main procedure can be called. So the sub procedure is purely for the functioning or to support the functioning of the main procedure. In order to see the effectiveness of this procedure, we will now look at the table that will receive the payment balances, and if we look, we will currently see that there is no data in this table. So use of this procedure, when this procedure is called, it will generate those balances and insert them into the student balance table. So here we are calling, this is the package, and this is the procedure. We are going to run this now. So the statement has been processed, and now if we look again in the object browser, we should now see all of these balances have been created. This table can be queried to determine on an up-to-date basis what is the student's current balance. Another procedure that was created was to determine whether students have been breaching the school rules in terms of how often they are absent and or late. This procedure raises warnings for students who have been absent and or late for more than twice in a calendar year. And when we run this, we see that this particular student has triggered these warnings. Another procedure that was created was an attempt to view a teacher's working history with the school. And we will now run this procedure. We will see here this reports on the teacher's name, the date that they were hired, their salary, what their subject specialty is, and what courses they have taught during what term to what form. So we can see this information clearly here. And if a teacher did not ever teach any courses, the procedure will also highlight that. Another business rule that was implemented in order to ensure the efficient operation of the school was the need to ensure that student classes do not exceed 20 students per class. in this case classroom capacity check trigger, that prevents the addition of any students to a classroom that will cause it to exceed that number. So we see here that that number is specified, and the way it is implemented, this can easily be changed by addressing one point in the trigger code. And if the class is full, this message will be generated: the class is at capacity, no students can be added.
Yes, good day. My name is Maurice, and I'm going to demonstrate some of the features of the specialization package. So the first feature I like to demonstrate uses a cursor to select all of the staff associated with a specific subject, all of the staff that are specialized with a specific subject. So the subject we'll be looking at is Geography Level 5, which has a subject ID of 14. So in order to demonstrate this, I'll be using a subprogram. Now once I run this program, we'll see that it generates a list of all staff or all teachers that is specialized in Geography 5. Now if we look here, we would see that staff ID 58 specializes in Geography in 5. But what if we'd like to find out what else does staff number 58 specialize in? Another cursor of the specialization package allows us to see just this. So we are specifying the staff in which we're looking for, and once we run it, it should generate the list of all subjects that staff is specializing. So here we see that staff 58 is specialized in subject 13, 12, and 14. Another feature of the specialization package is the ability to add additional specializations to existing staff members. Now this is done via the add specialization procedure. This procedure accepts two parameters, the staff ID as well as the subject ID in which that staff will be specialized in. In order to demonstrate this, we'll be using this basic block here, which adds the subject 15, which is level 5 history, to staff member 58. Okay, so the add specialization procedure ran successfully, but just to be sure, we can double check by using the same block we used earlier on, which contains the cursor. So this block once again will show all specializations assigned to staff 58. So let's run it a second time. And now we see staff 58 has subject 15 as one of his specializations. A key thing to note is that when running the add specialization procedure, the user does not need to provide a primary key. That the primary key is automatically generated within the package itself. Another thing we'd like to look at is the possibility of a user trying to add the same subject specialization to a teacher or staff that already exists. Now, if we're looking at our example here, we already know that staff 58 has the subject 15 specialized. But say for example I try running this procedure again. Now, trying to add a subject to a staff that already exists generates a trigger that prevents the duplication of staff and subject within the specializations table. So here we have an example as to the message that is generated by this trigger, where it indicates that the staff already has that subject specialization listed. Okay, so the last feature I'm going to look at today for the specialization package is the ability to remove a staff's specialized subject. So I'm going to run another simple block that demonstrates how this works. So here what we'll be doing is removing the subject 15 from staff 58. Okay, so the procedure ran successfully. Now if we use the initial cursor that was demonstrated, we'll be able to check and see that Subject 15 will have now been removed from staff 58. So here we're testing to see the list of subjects assigned or specialized by staff 58. If you look at the list, subject 15 is no longer specialized by staff 58. Okay, so that is all I'd like to demonstrate for the specialization package here today. Thank you.
Okay, folks, my name is Jeroen and I will be going through some of the basic functionalities of our merits package and our registration package. Just as a glance, we see that our merit award table has no data. The reason I'm showing is so that once we populate it or once we run the function, we would want it to do something, right? There we go. So we can do the null check. We all understand validation. We understand checking for null entries. So as it says, is missing course ID because it catches that exception first. So it doesn't actually check for the second. If you did it for the second, you should get the appropriate response. Yep, missing the student ID, which was the second field. Alright, so let's try the individual student first, which would be the 2 parameter, which will be the last one. Let's try this. Yeah, like I said, we already saw the merits table has no values, so anything we run to populate should enter something. So there we go. And if we just switch views, it should refresh. There we go. Right, so we see we have one entry. That was for the one we just entered. Alright, so to try to run one for the entire course as we were doing before, the reason I didn't do that first is because it would be hard to determine the single entry if I ran the multiple entry first. Alright, so that's the logic behind the madness. So to run for the entire class, alright, statement processed. So learning from our mistakes, we will just switch tables as opposed to trying to refresh the screen. Come back to it. And there we go. So now we have populated, and each one is assigned based on whatever their final grades were. Highest honors, or do we have one with high honors? Yeah, there we go. High honors. The requirements were simply 95 and up highest, 90 and up high, and 85 to 90 would have been just honors. That's based on the project that was done before. Those were the business rules, so we just implemented that. The previous design also did not use any identity, so the IDs were never generated automatically. So to compensate for that, we did triggers for the tables and sequences for each one. That way, if the values are passed without a primary key, it would automatically assign a value based on the sequence. Alright. Yeah, that's the general functionality of the merits. It is an overloaded package. As you see, there are 3, same name, different parameters, and based on the parameters that you send, it will process accordingly, which is by definition what overloading does. Interesting. So let's try to ascend an entire class. So the idea behind this is that students going from Form 1 to Form 2 will automatically need, you don't want to do each student one by one. You could add a student to a class individually if you want to, using the add to class package, which will do the validation and stuff for that. But generally, you want to be able to add a group of students from like a Form 1X to the upper form, which will be Form 2X. The only requirement being that it's not a Form 3 or Form 5, because those cannot be ascended naturally. Form 3s need to pick their subjects, and Form 5s, same thing, don't automatically go into Form 6. So let's test it. So let's see, class assignments should, if I do this in descending order, if I can do this very quickly, it should be helpful. Already over on time. Alright, so the last batch, which was just entered, here students 1 through 15.